Hello, it's time for Witchy Book Club. And happy Easter to those who celebrate. I'm going to invite a few people. Okay. All right. Welcome, welcome. So tonight is Witchy Book Club. We are doing part 2, chapter 2, or it would be the 4th chapter. And this one is a pretty, well, as we dive into this book, we're diving into how to heal ourselves. So this is Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Myss, the 7 stages of power and healing. So it's not just healing, it's also taking your power back and growing spiritually. So if you are new to this book and you haven't read the book before and you haven't been here for Witchy Book Club yet, Carolyn Myss is a medical intuitive. And she wrote this book, actually, it was like 1990. I know I said it the first time. I think it was like 1996. There we go. Okay, I was going to say 3. I knew it had something to do with a 3 or a 6 or a 9. So it is an older book. There are, at least to my knowledge, 2 editions, because there is an edition that has tonight's chapter as chapter 4. So with this particular edition that I have, so if your edition looks like this, it is part 2, chapter 2, and it is the 2nd chakra. This is taking the Hindu chakras with the Christian sacraments and the Jewish Kabbalah tree of life. So this is a pretty profound concept to take that 7 and grow with it. So just as a little recap before I get started, the first chakra, that's our root chakra. We're moving into our sacral chakra today. And so her concept is that the root chakra is all is one. It is literally the tribal chakra, that we're all supposed to be in a group. So that's what that is the tribal chakra. And I want to welcome everybody. I see a lot of people joining, so this is fabulous. So thank you so much. So just checking if anyone who's supposed to come up on panel is here yet. I don't see anyone yet. So, okay. All right. So now we're jumping in. So her concept is all is one for number 1. And the second one is what we're doing today. And it is the 2nd chakra. And the 2nd chakra concept is honor one another. And this is like such good timing. I've had it's really good timing. We can't plan these things, like the universe plans for us. So everything synchronizes when it's supposed to synchronize. So I'm going to kind of go through the chakra, through this chapter, as we wait for the other panel members. If you have read the book and you want to jump up and make some comments, please feel free to request to come up and I'll let you up. I do want to say this is an open panel. This is also a sacred space. So not everybody is going to have the same belief. So like if you're Christian, you may not believe in paganism. If you're pagan, you may not believe in Judaism. If you're Jewish, you may not believe in Hinduism. It's okay. We all have something beautiful to contribute. And so I'm fine with discussions, no arguments, and no cyberbullying. When I see that, I will try to warn you. If I can't warn you and I see it continuing, you'll be muted. And worst step is you'll be blocked. And if anybody sees a bot, please tell me if you see a bot. I haven't had too many pop up, but bots are automatically banned. So, because we don't need them. We're here for something different. We're not here for bots to pull stuff. So, all right. So welcome, welcome. All right, again, I'm going to hold up the book, Anatomy of the Spirit, Carolyn Myss, and this is the book discussion. So this is every week. If you missed any of them and you're like, oh, I missed these, they are on my YouTube channel and they are on my Patreon. My Patreon is in my bio, so it's one of the links. I don't know if it's the first or the second one. One of them takes you to my website, and actually my website will take you also to Patreon. But Patreon, the video does usually post like a couple days after. I try to get it as quick as possible. So it's either Monday or Tuesday that tonight's discussion will post as a replay. But here's the trick with Patreon. If you are a Patreon member at the $5 level or above, and you get a lot of cool stuff from me, especially if you're pagan. If you're pagan, you'll really want to join Patreon because you do get a lot of information. You'll actually get the deep dive, and wink, wink. So I do give a lot in the deep dive, and that is before we have the book discussion. So you will get that before the book discussion. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. All right, so we're jumping into the second chakra in Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Myss. So the second chakra is the power of relationships. So our second chakra is our sacral chakra. And Carolyn Myss calls this kind of our partnership chakra, our relationship chakra. So some of the stuff, I can't say some of the words, so because of TikTok and YouTube, so I'm going to do the best I can, and hopefully you understand what I'm saying. So the location is our lower abdomen to our navel area. So basically our belly button below to our sacrum, because our sacrum is our root chakra. The energy connection is our procreation organs. Sorry, I'm not trying to be creative here. Our intestines, our lower vertebra, our hips, our pelvis, our appendix, and our bladder. Our energy connection, and this is to our emotional and mental body, is for our need for relationships with others, our need to control to some extent the dynamics of our physical environment. That's really important to remember as we go through this talk, or as we discuss this section of the book. The symbolic perceptual connection is that the second chakra enables us to generate a sense of personal identity and protective psychological boundaries. What is really cool about that is that we each have our own way to protect ourselves psychologically. This is kind of that fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So, because we all do something to that. But what else we want to keep in mind is that this is also our connection to the external world. This is our physically seductive forces. This is sensuality, money, addiction, substances, and other people. The second chakra energy, if we are healthy, we can let go of our ego. And we don't have to sell ourselves. We're self-sufficient. We can have our survival instincts. So that's the second chakra. The Seraphat or sacrament connection with the second chakra. So the Kabbalah tree of life, the Seraphat is the Yosod. And that represents the male energy of procreation. And the sacramental connection is the sacrament of communion. So our primal fears with this, loss of control or being controlled by another. This is feeling like somebody is dominating you or dominating events, dominating conditions. This is also where addiction comes in, betrayal, financial loss, abandonment, and I'm not saying all of them because some of them, again, are words we can't say on TikTok. So our primary strengths are ability and stamina to survive financially and physically on one's own to defend and protect oneself. She literally lists here the fight or flight. And so it's just so that everybody is aware, it's fight, flight, flee, and fawn. Right? Fight, flight, I think those are the 4 right ones, but there's 4. I know I usually forget fawn because fawn's kind of a newer one, but I hope I got those right. If I didn't, please feel free to put the right one in the chat. So no offense if I did get it wrong, because there is sometimes like 4 F's is hard to think of, right? So this is our resilience and our recovery from, a loss, whether it's the loss of a family member, a partner, a property, an occupation, or finances. So that's where that is. Now the sacred truth. So this is her concept, and the sacred truth is honor one another. All right. So this is really important. And the thing is some of the Christian sacraments, I don't, like, I'm still having a hard time connecting them with the chakras and the seraphats from the Kabbalah Tree of Life. But her concept of all is one, and then this concept for this chakra, honor one another, really does resonate. And so I really want us to think about that tonight, like honoring one another, because when we honor one another and we honor people the way we should be honoring people and being respectful, we're going to have an open chakra. We're going to have a successful chakra. And keep in mind, when our bottom 3 chakras are out of alignment, when they're closed, when they're blocked off, it's going to put the rest of us in an imbalance. And so we need to like keep ourselves balanced. So it's really important to understand that. So, what she's really stressing in this is that our relationships are really important, and they are. Like, think about it. Like, they've done studies because they've punished prisoners and in jails and prisons by putting them in solitary, and even just a day in solitary can cause psychological damage. I think most recently, most of us can probably relate. I mean, it was like hard to believe 5 years ago, but when COVID happened, when everything was shut down, like if you lived by yourself, I mean, I had a few friends that would call me every night and we would talk on the phone, because I had a few friends that lived by themselves and they were extremely lonely. Like, they missed going into work. And this actually changed everything. My daytime job, I work for a company. We work from home 100% of the time. So the only time I see my coworkers is when we're on a Zoom call. I don't know a lot of them very personally well. So it's like that personal connection. Not that we need to be best friends with our coworkers, but we're putting in a lot of time, right? So this second chakra is literally our time and growing with each other. It's that connection. So that connection is really important. So the second chakra, she talks about the power of choice with the second chakra. This is where we're really diving into our decisions and how they impact people. So the second chakra helps us evolve beyond collective energy of the tribe. So that's our first chakra. And now we get to make our own choices. So we can make choices for good or bad. We can make choices sometimes based on our environment and our culture, and how our environment and our culture play a part in our lives. So that can be really important too. So our choices, she talks about how they're weaved into our spirit and how they can affect us. So she does bring up the quote, and I did like this quote. I've always kind of liked this quote. So faith is the size of a mustard seed, can move a mountain. And so when we make choices from fear, it's a violation of our energy of faith, is what she's kind of talking about. But when we are letting fear or shame or guilt, any of those, hold us back from making our choices, it will really honestly impact our lives, and it's going to impact our chakra. So it does really impact a lot of things when we do this. So she does talk about that in this particular section. The second chakra, and she makes this point, is to learn what motivates us to make choices in what we do. This is like, so I want, like, I'm kind of pointing out the really important things. And so I really encourage you, if you haven't read the book and you don't have the book, because I underline and star things in the book, take some notes. And again, if you want to rewatch this on the replay, it will be on my Patreon and my YouTube. So if you haven't been taking notes, it's okay. You can go back. And again, it's Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Miss. I'll pop it up a couple times just so that everybody knows. So our choices impact us. This is where we can be accountable for our choices if we make a bad choice that affects someone's life, or if we make a good choice that affects someone's life. It's not just us, it's also making choices, like, especially like when we're looking at making a choice that involves our partners, our significant others, our children, our parents, our siblings, our friends, our coworkers. I mean, you know, we're making choices all the time. My particular job, I have to make choices for lots of people. As a matter of fact, when I'm done working, my husband will be like, "What's for dinner?" I'm like, "You decide." So on the weekends, I don't mind picking, but the weekdays, I'm like, I don't care. This is us, like our choices. How are our choices going to affect us? Like, if I eat a candy bar every day, am I going to put weight on? And is that going to be bad? Is that going to cause diabetes? Like, you know, we have choices that we do have to make, and we need to be conscious of the consequences. So she really dives into choice and relationships. And as I'm going through this, it's going to start clicking, because some of our relationships are online relationships. Oh, yes. Louise, question. What's your question? I know it takes a second to type it, or I may have missed your question, because I know I'm trying to catch stuff, but feel free. I'll give you just a second. As a matter of fact, I'm going to grab something to drink, just because when I talk a lot, I do get a little bit dry, maybe. I try to like gulp down a lot before I go on, so that I don't get too dry for everybody. Let's see, did I miss the question? Can we improve body areas in the chakras by clearing them? Yes, we can. One of my favorite books on chakras is Eastern Body, Western Mind. I happen to be a Reiki master teacher for both Yasui Reiki and Sasekum Sahu Reiki, which is Egyptian Reiki. And honestly, like when I'm doing a Reiki session, I really concentrate on the chakras. I also concentrate on other areas of the body. But yes, we do want to make sure our chakras are open and clear. As our chakras are open and clear, we can actually learn to grow and become stronger people. And you're going to see a shift. And I'm not just saying that because I've seen it with clients, but I've seen it with myself. And so my husband was the first one to tell me about Reiki. And he's like, you know what? Like, you've gone through so much, and I know you're trying to heal. Have you checked Reiki out? So my husband is a Reiki practitioner also. And I'm like, no. And so we were talking about it, and then I looked for a Reiki master and found one. It has impacted my life in such a positive way. So I got up to Reiki 2, which is Reiki 2 is Yasui Reiki 2 is Reiki practitioner. And I was like, I know I'm supposed to share this with other people. So that's why I got my Reiki 3. But I noticed as I was able to take the pain that I had and the traumas that I had, as I was shifting them and transforming them into something positive, my chakras started opening up. Now I'm pretty much cleared a lot of the time, but sometimes I'll have bad days, but I know what I need to do to clear them. So yes, our chakras, and you're going to love this book, because this book is really helpful. This is like just another great, I like to call them tools in our medicine kit, right? So we don't have a medicine cabinet, we have a medicine kit. So I would definitely say this one, stick around. We're doing a chapter a week, so it's literally going to be the rest of April and all of May. We'll be covering this book. And I'm probably going to bring Eastern Body, Western Mind in, because that one is that book literally changed like a lot of my thought processes on chakras. It helped me understand them a little more. And actually, I feel like it's helped me when I'm working with clients too. So there are a lot of beautiful tools out there when we're working with the chakras. So, and that was a very beautiful question. Thank you so much for that question, because that's always really super helpful when we have that. All right, so you're welcome. So choice and relationship is this next section in this book. And in this next section, it's talking about how our second chakra energy is very volatile because it's linked to physical survival. So I like to compare, I will say this a lot. If you've ever had a psychology class, in basic psychology, they bring up Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy. And you can find a lot of articles on it, especially like on Psychology Today. But Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy, the bottom two rungs are like your basic survival instincts. Chakra 2 correlates with his second rung. And like it's that physical, it's moving yourself up so that you're not just surviving. So she does talk about that. So this is our physical survival. It's not basic needs. Basic needs is our root chakra. So our sacral chakra is our physical survival. This is sensuality, power, and finances. So when we live paycheck to paycheck, or if we don't even, like some people I know don't even live paycheck to paycheck, they barely survive. You know, you're under a lot of stress. So you're going to have a lot of issues with your second chakra. And this is where we need to learn, what can we do? So we find a lot of these. So she gave 3 really good questions for this chakra. And so I'm going to read those to you. The first one is, can I earn a living? The second one is, can I find a partner? And the third one is, can I take care of myself? So those are pretty profound. Okay, so one thing I want to point out, and I taught all 3 of my children, I have like 2 girls and a boy, and I really stressed it with my girls, is I said to my girls, do not rely on a partner to take care of you. You need to be able to take care of yourself. I stress this because for generations, women were taught that their husbands are supposed to take care of them. And then if something happens, like a husband passes away or there's a divorce, a lot of women have not been able to take care of themselves. I saw this actually. When I was going through a divorce, a friend of mine was going through her divorce, and she was about 10 years older than me. And she had never worked out of the house. She'd been a stay-at-home mom the whole time, and she was struggling. She'd get into a place and get evicted because she was having a really hard time finding a job. And it was because she was always taught to be the homemaker and be the wife. And I'm like, okay, well, what skills do you have? And, you know, it was really hard. She hadn't worked in 20 years. And to try to find work after 20 years, like, you go in with a resume of homemaker. And she was really, really struggling. And not that that was the key, but I knew because I had a job, I have a degree, I could support my kids on just my income. So I stressed it. So even though she has the question, can I find a partner? I think it's really important to understand that you need to be able to make a living. Like she says, can I make a living? And the second one, I would put the second question is, can I take care of myself? And those are like 2 really important ones. Now, the can I find a partner? Here's the thing, is our sacral chakra says we need companionship. We need to have relationships with people. This is like mandatory for humans. So if you don't actually have a significant other, as long as you have a good friendship, that good friend that you can go to, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to get married. So that's the only thing I would say there, because I do have a lot of friends who are single and have no intention of ever getting married, but they have a beautiful like group of friends that they can rely on. So we just need to make sure we have our social group. So instead of can I find a partner, I would do, can I have close relationships with others? So that's where I would tweak this a little bit. And again, to each their own. I look at it as the standpoint that not all of us are going to get married. Not all of us are, and some of us may have like, and some people, I mean, I have friends that are polyamorous. So, sometimes we have like that little tribe, that little hive that we have. So we do need to make sure we have that support. Okay. So the shadow side, she touches on the shadow side of our sacral chakra. And this is our fears. This is betrayal, abandonment, financial loss or poverty, isolation, and the inability to take care of ourselves. So that's what's going to hold us back. And I want to thank everybody real quick for all of the hearts that everybody's given. So thank you so much. I saw a couple gifts pop up too. So I want to thank everybody for those. If I miss saying your name, just know that I really am appreciative to everybody who is posting. And again, if you've read this book and you want to pop up and have a discussion, please feel free. I also know it is a holiday, so y'all might be stuck with me until we're done. So at least this week. So okay, so she also talks about how the deity sometimes can sometimes conflicts represent most people's relationships with their relationships with deities. So here's where this comes in and is tricky, right? Some of us may or may not believe in deities or working with a deity or multiple deities, right? Because it does really depend. So our faith or our spiritual or religious beliefs will play a role in our second chakra. So keep that in mind, and tweak it how it fits you, right? Because it may not fit you, and I'm not going to like really stress the religious aspect that she throws in, just because of the fact that not all of us may follow the same religious guideline. Now, she did say she is Christian, and she is using the Hindu chakras and the Jewish tree of life, the Kabbalah. So we keep that in mind. When I'm reading books that are written by somebody in a specific religion, I take what works with me, and the other part, if it doesn't work and resonate, it's like somewhere in my brain, right? If I ever need it, but I don't use it all the time. So, she does talk about how, we do need to, also understand if we do happen to have a partner, what power is yours and what power is your partner's. So she does talk about that in this section also. This is where we don't want our partner to rely on us. And I think there's a certain aspect. I don't think rely is the best name. Like, we don't need to be codependent on each other, right? We should be dependent, but be able to merge together. I think that's the most important thing that we need to think about. All right. So, the second chakra energies, they also give us the need to create life or to move the earth. So she does talk about that. So in here, she talks about creative energy breaks us out of habitual patterns of behavior, thoughts, and relationships. And, it really does. And creativity is really important. Now, creativity is not always in our second chakra, but if our second chakra is blocked, don't be surprised if your upper chakras are blocked too, because that can happen, especially when we're looking at creativity. So she does talk a little bit about blocks. She talks about, so she gives an example of a woman and her husband had passed away. So she was actually a stay-at-home mom, and the husband passes away and she had a daughter to take care of, and she did not know how to take care of herself financially without her husband. She had relied on him so much. She was so codependent on the husband, and she was starting to get sick. So they found in one of the areas that I talked about earlier, a tumor, and now it was benign tumor. And, she was asked, what is your talent? And her talent happened to be sewing. So, somebody reached out to her that couldn't finish sewing costumes for a play. And she was able to take up the task and then ended up becoming a very successful costume designer and opening her own costume shop. So it's that mind over matter, getting out of your head and realizing I have gifts and talents. And so I think the most important thing from this story is to remember that everybody has a gift and a talent. This gift and talent can help us survive. And with that survival comes personal growth and opening up your chakra. Being able to take care of yourself literally and is like empowering. So this is where we get a lot of this empowering. So she talks about, and here, this is so important, especially because we're on TikTok tonight. So all of you that are here, this is so important. And I'm actually going to read a little quote here. All right. So she talks about how our creative energy from our sacral chakra can be volatile because it is so powerful. So one of our greatest challenges is to be conscious about it. Conscious about how we are utilizing our energy, how we're utilizing our thoughts and our interactions with people. So when we say something to somebody that is negative, we're bringing them down. So if we say, like, we need to be thoughtful, even if we're supposed to, like, if somebody says, hey, can you critique my PowerPoint, or can you critique my paper? We need to be careful about it, because if we do it in a wrong way, we're actually going to be causing damage to somebody, right? And if we're the person asking for the assistance, like, can you check this grammatically for me, or that type of thing, we need to also keep that in mind, because everybody processes things differently, and how you may process may come across mean and cruel to somebody else. So we do need to think about that. So she does talk about this. So she's talking about how, like, sometimes we may, or somebody may do this to us, may manipulate someone to get what we want, right? And that's negative energy. Not only that, this is really important. I'm literally going to read this verbatim. I'm going to read it twice because I think it is so important. Gossip and manipulation drain power from the second chakra. Gossip and manipulation drain power from the second chakra. All right, while I'm saying this, while I'm saying it's really important, take a second and think. We're now on social media, and it is huge, especially since the pandemic, right? Because we were stuck at home, and sometimes we couldn't get a hold of friends. Sometimes we got sick of the people we were living with, right? I mean, my husband and I, we like hit points where we were just in separate rooms because we were just like, we can't sit together 24/7, right? You can't. All right. But gossip and manipulation drain from the second chakra. Have you ever gossiped about somebody? Have you ever been a victim of gossip? whether it's with your in-person group or online. Think about that. Have you known somebody who's been gossiped about to the point that you saw it affect them in a very hurtful way? And did you see what happened to the gossiper? So last week we kind of briefly touched on this because it kind of was just starting to come out a little bit with the root chakra, but with the sacral chakra, this really does come out. I gave the example of when I was growing up, I was part of a Christian church, and I was supposed to go to Sunday school, and my parents would drop me off the front door. I'd sneak out the back door, right? Well, part of the reason was because there were mean girls, and they were really mean, and they would say some really hurtful things. So I would just walk out the other side. Now, a couple of my really close friends would walk out the other side. One of them, she was somehow able to persuade her parents not even to let her go anymore. She explained, these girls are mean. I explained this last week really briefly, and I happened to be in town visiting in the town that I grew up in, and I went into the 7-Eleven. And one of the mean girls had grown up. She was extremely rich. And if you didn't wear Guess jeans and like certain Reebok shoes, yeah, I'm an 80s baby. It was like all those 80 clothes, right? You were not good enough to even be in the same room with her. She was very, very snotty about it to a really bad point, right? Like, it was hurtful. I avoided her like the plague. Again, I only had to deal with her at church. I didn't have any classes with her, but at school, and I only had to deal with her at church. So I go into 7-Eleven, and she's working behind the counter. Now, my point is that some of us, like, it'd be cool, like when we're a teenager, to work at 7-Eleven, right? Or if that's like the only thing, like, you know, if you have no other career goals in your, not career goals, I like, it's a really important role. It's actually very dangerous to work at convenience stores. So, you know, if you work at a convenience store, bless your heart, because it is very dangerous. But for somebody who was extremely snotty about, like, you had to have the most expensive clothes, and she grew up, her parents were loaded, right? I mean, I'm talking loaded. To walk into 7-Eleven and see that she's there. And I talked to her briefly, and it was funny because she was nice, and she had never been nice to me when I went to church. And she's like, oh, you know, like, she asked, and she left the church, and I was like, yeah. It was like, well, I kind of left the church because of you, but I didn't say that to her. But it was really interesting because here we're having this conversation, and I found out that, you know, nothing went right for her. Why? Probably because she was mean and gossiped about people. So literally, like in this book, it's literally talking about that. So I'm going to read it again. Gossip and manipulation drain power from the second chakra. Yep. You know what? And oh yeah. So Candace and I were part of the same church, and I see your comment there. Yes. And it's even worse in the adults. So it is worse in the adults, because I did go back and then ended up leaving again. But yes, it is worse in the adults. When we get in some of the, and I'm just going to throw this out there because some of you are probably also thinking about this, when it does get into churches actually, even though like the Bible teaches you not to judge people that belong to churches are extremely judgmental. I'm not going to say all of them, but my experience with this particular Christian religion, yes, they were extremely judgmental. And I have run into other people in different Christian religions that have been pretty judgmental too. So think about that though. Gossip and manipulation drain power from your second chakra. This goes for people who attack people online. These are the cyber bullies. What do they call them? Karens, trolls. I mean, I literally this week, somebody like did a nasty video about me because they wanted to be aggressive in my life and I was like, really? Okay. You know, I blocked them. I could have done a nasty video on them. I could have said their name, but nope, they did a nasty video on me. They said my name. Kudos to them. Guess what? I don't have to worry about it, right? No, I don't. That's on them. If that's how they want to live their life. So that's what we need to think about. Are we going to be people that, like, how do we want to be? Do we want to be those people that are gossiping and manipulating? Because we're going to have a really messed up chakra if we're those people. It's really going to be messed up. Or are we going to be those people that are going to recognize, oops, I just said that was gossip. I need to clear my second chakra and I need to watch myself. I mean, it is really hard. I mean, I've stood outside with my neighbors when they're like, so-and-so down the street, you know, and so people are gossiping. It's kind of part of human nature, but it's not healthy for us. It really isn't healthy for us. And who cares what so-and-so down the street's doing, right? It really doesn't matter. Like, is it going to harm us in some way? If it's not going to harm us, it doesn't matter. Keep that in mind. Like, I mean, I've literally talked to people who are like, well, I don't like this type of community. Fill in any community there, all right? And they have so much hate and anger for a specific community. And I'll ask when somebody says something, what did that community do to you? And I've even had where, like, well, it's against my religious beliefs, or it's against my beliefs. So what's, like, have they physically harmed you? Have they emotionally harmed you? If not, why does it even bother you? You know, go on with your life. Go for walks. Keep people in your life that are good. So just kind of keep that in your mind. I thought that was like really, really important for us to talk about. And here's okay. She gave another story. This story was really good. So, she called the guy John. I don't know if I think she's probably changing people's names. I don't know. So he attended a workshop and he was trying to start a video company where they would make videos. And he had what he thought was a dream team, but he didn't like any of their ideas. And the partners left. So his two partners left. So he was controlling everything. So it was one of those situations of controlling everything. And if you've ever been around people who have to control everything, they're really difficult to be with, especially if you have to work with them, right? I can think of so many people I've had to work with that I was like, they put me in a group with those people where I'm just like, I'll sit there and go, because I know that if I throw out an idea, if they like it, they're going to twist it and say it was theirs and take credit for it. Or they're just going to not like any of my ideas. So it's like, just tell me what you want me to do, because I'm not even going to waste my time, right? Some of those people we need to do that with. So that was kind of John's attitude. So he lost his two partners, and the business had not even made one video yet. And so he blamed everything on his partners. And he literally said to Carol and Miss at this thing that he needed to find people that would just do what he asked them to, because he's the creative power behind everything. So she was talking about how when we are single creators, that it can create conflict. So it's more or less when we try to control everything. So she was talking about how this particular person, John, was not honoring one another and not listening to other people. So when you're in a management position, basically what she's saying is that you need to be able to honor each other and honor those around you. And creativity is frequency that sows seeds. That's what she says. And it's true. Have you ever just been inspired by, like, reading a book or listening to a podcast, like, where you've just been like, wow, I'm so inspired. Like, I want to go do a painting or draw a picture. So think about that. We can be inspired. So he was somebody, and he did not change after he went to her workshop. She recommended that he go to therapy, and he was determined to find people that he could lead and that would listen to him. So she was talking about that. She has a big section in here. Also, I'm not going to touch on it in this because a lot of the words associated with it, because we're working with our procreation organs. I'm not going to touch on it. I do touch on it in my deep dive on my Patreon, though. So I do touch on it there. All right. The challenge, her next section is the challenge of managing sensual energy. So again, these are our organs for procreation. So this is a lot of our second chakra. She does talk about that sometimes when we are blocked, that we will have issues in our sensual organs. And she does go into a lot of examples. I'm not going to touch on them again because TikTok is pretty sensitive about that. So this little section, unfortunately, and there is a very beautiful story. So I will encourage you, if you haven't, Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Miss. So this section in the second chapter is literally from, if you want to write down the pages, page 142, and it goes to, it does go to, I'm going to stop at 148. Yeah, it goes down to 148. And then she does talk a little bit, a little bit more as we go a little bit further into it. But again, we can't, I can't really touch on a lot of it. There's way too many words to come up with alternative words that we may or may not understand. But now we're going to get into energy violations. So she's really talking about energy violations as she moves through. And these energy violations can come in a lot of different ways. So, I put like a little thing there. I put gossipers, trolls, Karens as a side note on page 151. So if you have the book on page 151, it would be the second paragraph. Because our physical bodies hold the negative intentions. And this is where sometimes like people who mean to do harm intentionally, where they come in. So that's why I put that there. So the next one, money, money, money. She talks about the energy of money. Wow. You know, like you hear, like there's that song, Money Makes the World Go Round. I'm trying to remember what that, I think it's from a musical. I don't know. But there's like, you know, there's lots of songs about money. So, so she does talk about money has, like, in some cases is clout and symbolism in the energetic world, in the physical world. But like, how much does it play, right? So she kind of talks about like money can be evil. Money can be bad. Like when we have too much money. I think about like, actually, you know, I'm going to bring it up. I worked at a small company and the owner had a lot of money. And two of his kids worked with me and I was their supervisor. And as soon as the child turned 11 years old, these kids were sent off to boarding schools. So one of them was a legal adult. And he'd like come in my office and sometimes have breakdown conversations. And it was about like how his dad was so impersonal and that the money wasn't worth it and those kind of conversations. And so one of his younger kids, who was 16, had started working and she worked with me. And she literally like broke down because she would only work for me when her boarding school was on break. And she's like, I would prefer to drop out of school and stay here because I don't have my parents in my life. That really broke my heart because they were literally shipped off to different boarding schools across the country. They weren't close. They were flown home for holidays. But the impact that the money had, even though they were getting the best education in the world, they didn't have what you really need with your second chakra, and that is that relationship with your parents, that relationship with your siblings. Like, we all have to have those relationships, and that's what she's really talking about. So that one really came to me. It talks in here about, like, literally, I'm just going to read this sentence. Putting faith before money reduces money from its status as leader to that of servant. Its more appropriate position. So she really talks about how when we make money more important than our spiritual growth, how damaging that is to us physically and how damaging it is to our chakra. So that's something to really keep in mind. So she does go into that. And she does go into a lot of stories on that. The next one, the next section in this chapter is on ethical energy. She talks about how our second chakra records our interactions with people. And that this is where, like, when I give you my word, I promise you, this is where it's coming from, right? This is our core, like, this is getting into the core of our essence. So one area that I marked is that the physical order of the first chakra is in charge, makes us feel safe. And its laws make us feel that control exists within our environment. The ethics and morals of the second chakra provide us with language through which we can communicate what we accept and don't accept in human relationships. Ethics hold enormous bonding power. We seek out the company of those who hold the same sense of right and wrong as we do. I think that's, like, really important. And when we, like, are holding on to those people with the same right and wrong, the importance that we have and how it opens up our chakra. And welcome, Bren. Welcome to panel. This is a deep
I'm
tonight.
finally on time for the book club. I don't have my coffee, but close enough.
So, I don't know how much you've heard or if you just popped on.
Literally just stepped my footsie in the door.
All right, there we go. Because I, like, realized, I was like, oh, I'm going live on Easter. But you know what? I'm going live. So I guess a lot of people will get the replay today. So our ethical energy is stored in our second chakra, is what Carolyn is suggesting. She does talk about oh yeah, okay, I'm going to point this out. So there was and again, her theme for this is honor one another. That's the theme for this chakra. She talks about an attorney who was 42 years old. Now, going through law school is pretty grueling. I work with a lot, and I have a lot of friends who are attorneys, and I actually have a child that's in law school. So when I tell you it's pretty grueling, it's pretty grueling. So this Paul, who was 42, was talking about the stress related to his job. I can tell you from other attorneys that I know, a lot of times they are working 60 plus hours a week, right? So it's pretty stressful. They don't get that time often with their families that a lot of us appreciate and get to have. So he was talking about how he tried therapy, that he had pain, and the pain that he had was in the areas of the second chakra. So they're like in his intestine areas. He has low backaches and all of that. He also became very controlling. Here's the thing. When our second chakra is messed up, this is when we are trying to control everyone and everything. This is when we want everybody to have our beliefs and we're not open-minded enough to even appreciate other people. So keep that in mind. So come on, we've all done that at least at one point in our life.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we do, because sometimes, like, you know, it's like, sometimes it's our way to try to get back our power is by trying to control other people. And when you recognize it and can go, oops, I shouldn't be doing this right now, that's a big thing. And some people don't ever notice it. But he had pointed out that he was always driven and always had to win. It was like at any expense he had to win, but it was causing him a lot of pain. And what happened is he had to start actually taking pain medication. He was really scared of getting addicted to it because it was the only way he could function. He believed that if he was dominating somebody or something, he was okay, but he was inches away from actually damaging his personal code of ethics. So in his story, he talks about how he was an obnoxious competitor by nature. The pain started in his stomach and intestinal area, like below the navel and in his low back. So again, it starts in the second chakra, but then started moving up towards his body. So keep that in mind. When we are really unbalanced in one chakra, the pain is going to start in that chakra and then it will move. It can move to every point in your body. So then you need to remember, where did it start? Because if you don't remember where it started, it's going to be hard to remember how to fix it. So he tried everything he could to fix it. But he was unable to actually fix it because of his competitive nature. So, you know, she likes to give a lot of these examples of people who fix things and people who don't. The next part is the personal power of the sacral chakra. That's the next section. Oh, Brent, I should ask, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes. So the sacral chakra. Alrighty, that lovely thing. That actually happens to be the chakra that has the most karma stored in it for me. And the ruling planet associated with it is actually Jupiter. Because Jupiter, if he's in good dignity and if you're using him effectively, he does represent the one that writes the law and strategizes the law, and then as well strategizes with other people and also to motivate people and to guide people. But when he's not in the best dignity and not being his real authentic self, you can have him become like, you must do this because I'm the guru, you must do it, sit. But then also Jupiter is also, if he's in his natural, how he's supposed to be, very humble, just, I am just who I am. But the extreme on the other side is that egotistical hyper-competitiveness. Because Jupiter is detached from trying to compete. He doesn't want to compete with anybody, he wants to teach everybody. But when he's the other way around, he's trying to be the, notice me, look at me, I'm a guru, check me out, I know all the wise stuff. But that, the conditions that he was getting possibly could also be, because Jupiter is also heavily tied in one's ethical standards. If they're not being honored, that's where that starts to deteriorate. And Jupiter is for goodness sakes, he's the guru of the gods. If you don't act ethical, well, Guru will bless you in the ways where you're not going to enjoy it. That's what we're talking about.
I was a little sidetracked. A spider almost burnt itself on my candle. He was coming down. I'm like, don't burn yourself. I'm so sorry. I like spiders.
It's a spider got lit on fire.
He got pretty close. And, you know, like, candles get pretty hot. So he did start going up. Now he's, like, kind of just hanging there. So as long as he's safe. I don't care if there's spiders in the house. I shouldn't say that too loud. I have a child who's petrified of spiders.
That's just me.
So, all right. So we're going to jump to this next section, the personal power of the second chakra. So this talks about creativity, sensuality, morality, and money are all forms of the second chakra energy or our power. The desire for our personal power is in this section. Power manifests as life force. Keep that in mind because this is where our procreation organs are. So that's part of us is like the need to procreate. It doesn't mean we all will.
Yep. And Jupiter also does represent the lineage, the Pitris, the ancestors, and then also the children. It represents that lineage.
Yep.
And he's also known as the Jiva Atma lineage.
Yep.
And he's also known as the Jiva Atma, the Atma's soul, and then Jiva's life, the soul of life.
Oh, I see somebody, they have a bug scream in a corner. Yes, my child that is scared of spiders, it is a blood curdling, like you would think they were being attacked when they see the spiders. So yeah, does happen. So it's a violation of our root chakra not feeling safe by an insect or an arachnid or yes. But so I'm going to read this actually straight from the book. Everything about our life is in fact involved in our relationship to this energy called power. Like, how important is that? Everybody, like, we have to have our personal power, but sometimes, like, some people want to have power and control over other people. And so that becomes a really big issue. So she does bring up Gandhi. She talks about how Gandhi had a clean rapport with power because he wanted to improve the lives of other people. His motivations were very transparent, and he suffered a lot of torments in his personal life. So, but he was globally recognized. And so kind of keep that in mind. He was very powerful. She also brings up the fictional character Forrest Gump. How Forrest...
Yep.
Yes. And actually, it's like, I know you're laughing, but here we go, right? We're going to jump into Forrest Gump. So how everybody loved Forrest Gump, right? He had strong ethics and morals. And his power in the physical world really was not overtly spiritual. He did not reject sensuality, power, and sex, but he attained the second chakra goals through his innocence and his improvisation so he literally, like, he never had to negotiate it. It was just his innocence. It came to him and he was successful. Like, think about it. Think about how...
Yeah. Yeah, that is true because you can have, it's like the sacral is the power of influence, to pull, to direct, or to even misdirect. It's just really how you use it, and also what means that you're using it for. For an example, if you're using your power to misdirect someone from causing harm to another person, or misdirect them in a way where you're out of harm's way, then it's with the good cause of that. But if it's with the main intent of like just keeping a hold of people on a leash, and that way you're gaining and they're losing, I don't know about that one.
Yeah. So we do need to examine, like, are we judging people? Are we trying to force our beliefs on them? You know, it's very, like, we should just accept and love everybody for who they are. Be a Forrest Gump.
And a good challenge, actually, speaking of that, if your sacral's having a bit of a hissy fit and you can't really intake or like judging other people's perspectives and not budging, have a challenge. Once a week, find somebody and then just ask them what they believe in, and then just allow them to speak it all through and not say, oh, that's wrong or this wrong. No, just take it all in and then balance it and reflect against where you stand and see where there's resonance or what you can add to it. That's a really deceptively simple way to heal the sacral.
Yes, that is so beautiful, Bren. That is absolutely so beautiful. And it's very true. Very, very true. So we're almost at the tail end of this chapter, but I am actually going to read this section because I think I'm going to read some of it verbatim and some of it I'm just going to summarize. She does say the full name. This person is an artist, so you can find information on him. So, heartbreaking story. Every time I read it, I cry, so I'm probably going to cry. Part of it because I understand, and part of it because there's so much we can learn and grow from. So his name is David Chetlet Paladin.
I just heard the name. Yeah, keep going. Oh, man.
So he happened to share his personal story with Carolyn Myss in 1985. He did pass away in 1986. So literally, if anything tonight, I hope that this story will impact everybody because this is a very beautiful story. This is literally honoring one another, the concept that Carolyn Myss has. So David was a Navajo Indian who grew up on a reservation in the 1920s and 1930s. By the time he was 11, he was an alcoholic. He left the reservation in his mid-teens, wandered around for a few months, then got a job on a merchant marine ship. He was only 15, but passed himself off as 16. On board ship, he became friends with a young German and another Native American. Together, they traveled to ports of call throughout the Pacific Ocean. As a hobby, David took up sketching. One subject that he sketched was the bunkers that the Japanese were building on various islands in the South Seas. The year was 1941. David's bunker drawings eventually fell into the hands of the American military. When he was drafted into military service, he assumed he would continue his work as an artist. Instead, he became part of a secret operation against the Germans. I don't know if we can say that. I don't know if we can say what they were. So,
yeah, probably best not. But yeah,
probably best not to. We'll say the little guy with the funky mustache in Germany. We'll just leave it at that. The Army had enlisted Navajo and other Native Americans for spy work network. The operatives were sent behind enemy lines and transmitted information back to the main base of the military operations in Europe. Because all radio transmissions could be intercepted, Native American languages were used to guarantee that a message picked up could not be intercepted. While David was behind enemy lines, he was caught by a group of Germans, and they tortured him. Among other things, they nailed his feet to the floor and forced him to stand for days in that condition. After surviving that horror, David was sent to an extermination camp because he was of a lesser race. While he was being shoved in the train car, he felt a rifle push him in the ribs, ordering him to move faster. He turned to face this German soldier. It was the German fellow David had befriended on board the merchant marine ship. David's German friend made arrangements for him to be transferred to a prisoner of war camp, where he spent the remaining years of the war. When the camps were liberated, American soldiers found David unconscious and in a state of unaliving. Transported to the United States, he spent 2.5 years in a coma in a military hospital in Battle Creek, Michigan. When he finally came out of the coma, his body was so weakened from the prison camp experience, he could no longer walk. He was fitted for heavy leg braces, and using crutches, he could drag himself short distances. David made up his mind to return to his reservation, say a last goodbye to his people, then enter a veterans hospital and stay there for the remainder of his life. When he arrived at the reservation, His family and friends were horrified at what had become of him. They gathered together and held a council to figure out how to help him. After the council meeting, the elders approached David, yanked the braces off his leg, tied a rope around his waist, and threw him into deep water. David, call back your spirit, they commanded. Your spirit is no longer in your body. If you can't call back your spirit, we will let you go. No one can live without his spirit. Your spirit is your power. Calling his spirit back, David told me, was the most difficult task he had to undertake. It was more difficult than enduring having his feet nailed to the floor. I saw the faces of the German soldiers. I lived through all those months in the prison camp. I knew that I had to release my anger and hatred. I could barely keep myself from drowning, but I prayed to let the anger out of my body. That's all I prayed, and my prayers were answered. David recovered the full use of his legs, went on to become a shaman, a Christian minister, and a healer. He also returned to his drawing and earned a reputation as a highly talented artist. David Chetlen Paladine radiated the quality of power that felt like grace itself. Having survived a confrontation with the darkest side of power, he transcended that darkness and spent the rest of his life healing and inspiring people to call back their power from experience that drain the life force from their bodies. So think about it. Brian?
I really have to say, now, what, I don't want to get like real over the top of this, but this is a prime example of how, especially the American natives, if it wasn't for them, we would not have been able to do all we could have in the Second World War. There could have been so much more damage. So, in my loving opinion, and not really an opinion, a fact, it's like we owe them even more on top of what we already have done. We owe them a lot more on top of like how parts of history are being removed. That part, I mean, I'm a feisty individual, but when you take away the history of the ancestors, that makes me flip. That makes me go, maybe you should be erased instead. Whew. But still, nonetheless, we have to understand that, especially with the part of how going through all that he did, and then surviving and coming back out of it and being impaired, and then having his people, and that's why I also really firmly believe that the elders knew what they were doing. They could see that his spirit was not connected to him. So they did what they knew would push him to bring it back. And to a point where it's like, it's either you do or you don't. And sometimes being pushed back down to that very, how to put this, like this really deep core of the self, to then really build that foundation again, that sometimes may be what has to be done. All that stands at the moment has to be completely demolished and then rebuilt back up from the ground up to be able to function again.
And he literally said he had anger and hate. So everybody who's listening to the live, think about, a lot of times this is what holds us back. Like I was on Alien T's live when we were actually talking about that, and I said anger and hate will hold you back. And if you have anger, it turns into hate. And once it gets too embedded into your body, literally, it's like David's story. His soul had left his body. That's what happens. Like when we let that anger fester. And that's unfortunately sometimes what comes across. Like people who are trying to control, they control out of anger and hate. So if you are controlling out of anger and hate, or if you have anger and hate and you're not even necessarily controlling, what do you need to do to get back? I think this is like the most powerful story. Yes, we can get a lot of wisdom from the elders. And I do want to actually add on to what Bryn said. My nieces are part Navajo, and I do have a shaman teacher, and he is amazing. And he like literally came into my life at a time that I needed that wisdom. He is Lakota, and I will tell you, it is so amazing when you are able, like, there's just something mystical and magical about it, and there's wiseness there. It's so important for us to appreciate and love everyone. So like this story has that, also not erasing history. That's really important, but it all goes along with this theme of honor one another, because we can learn and grow from other people, but we have to take accountability for our actions, and like making sure our chakras are open and making sure that we're making choices that aren't going to impact and harm other people. Like, are we saying things that aren't going to intentionally hurt somebody or intentionally damage their reputation? Like, we need to think about those type of things. Bren, anything else you want to add?
And this is also, how am I going to put this? And then there's also at the same time, when there is something wrongfully done to you, again, it is always best to just express whatever it is, express it, get it off, then let it rest. Because once you write it, say it out loud, as soon as it's out of you, just destroy the medium that it's on. Then it's gone. The sooner that you get a hold of it and release it, the more likelihood you're able to bounce back from it. But when you have it and you hold on to it, it starts becoming like fixed water, and it becomes putrid, and it starts infecting, and it starts growing and growing and growing and growing. And sometimes it is easier said than done, because there are things in life that make you go from the point where it's like, well, I have so much anger for this individual for doing this, and that's just where the test comes. Are you able to express it all and then just let it go? Or are you still wrestling with it? And sometimes, as discouraging as this sounds, some things may not be able to be completely overcome, and it has to be lived with. But the main thing is that when it comes up, you're able to take care of it and keep control of yourself. Because to be perfectly like I am without any anger, that's not really the most logical, ideal way of looking at it, because that's not possible. But it's mainly just keeping control and going with the flow. If a sassy not having a moment comes, let it just flow out, but then let it flow into the more, okay, peace and tranquil. Just keep with the flow. Don't put a dam anywhere and dam everything up. Damn it.
Yes. And it can be hard. I know, like, I watch like some podcasts and stuff, and I've watched, like, there are literal groups on people who have panels that attack each other back and forth, and it's constant and it's nonstop. And I've also heard people where, like, they go through like a nasty divorce where, like, it's just attack back and forth, attack back and forth. When that's going on, that is unhealthy. Like, you have to step back and step out of it. Stop it before it starts. Like, literally, stop it before it starts. Try to be the bigger person and not say something about somebody. But if you see it happening, that's when it's like, whoa, wait, this needs to stop. This isn't okay. And you do need to let it go. And it's okay to be angry and, like, be like, you know what? Sometimes, like, you can yell, like, just go outside and yell their name, that they're like a whatever you want to call them. So you can yell, Joe Schmo is a whatever, and then let it out. Let it out, and then let them go. Cut those ties.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely transparent. I have even said alone by myself many times. I'm going to not say my significant other's name. Oh my gosh. What the heck, man? What is this Dungeons and Dragons ass shit crap you're doing? Just getting it off of you. But even at that too, of course, and I mean, no connection is going to be free without any kind of argument or disagreement. But at the end of the day, when you have that core foundation of like, well, this is the person I'm going to be with, okay, I'm always going to figure out some way to just keep coming back to that core foundation. And there have been plenty of times where, I mean, I just wanted to tell him, I absolutely love you, but right now I kind of wish you would stop giving me a bloody headache. What? I'm not doing anything. You may think you're not, but you're making me need to get a bottle of Advil for this headache. But if you're able to take that step back and realize, this is my other half, and no matter what happens, even though it gets a trial and really tributing on the brain, I'm not going to let this anger overpower me and then it costs me something that I cherish and value more than anything.
I'm going to do the toothpaste story. Okay. So I actually, I was at my old church that I no longer belong to for a very, very long time. And I remember a woman who was complaining nonstop about her husband, nonstop. And she's like, and he squeezes the toothpaste. And it was like a point of contention. Like, I don't even know if they are married even now, like, because I haven't been a part of that church in like probably like 17, 18 years, maybe even 20. It was such a point of contention that I was like, they're going to break up over the toothpaste. It was like, oh my gosh, it's toothpaste. It's a tube of toothpaste. So when I married my husband, we move in together, and I had like my kids, like I had a couple kids that would roll the toothpaste like I roll it, and I had actually one kid that didn't, and he would squeeze it. And it always annoyed me, but I bought each kid their own tube of toothpaste. I was like, this will just solve this. And we moved in, and my husband's like, oh, I like this brand. And he squeezed it, and I'm a roller. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And yes.
That means so much, babe. Why are you squeezing it? What's wrong with that? Just roll it. But why roll it? It's faster. No, trust me, just roll it. But why? You get all of it out from the bottom. You use all of it. You don't waste any. And it got to the point where he still did it, and then got to the point where I'm like, here, okay. So when that tube is all the way done, give it to me when you're finished. About a month or so go by, and then what I do is I take a pair of scissors and I snip the end off, and I just open it up. Say, you see all that extra toothpaste that's just on the walls of it? Just stick your toothbrush in there and get all the rest of it out before you get a new one. That's why.
You know what I did? I didn't want it to be a point of contention because I kept thinking about that woman and how miserable she was. And like how it was such a point of contention. And I was like, I love this guy. I'm not going to like make toothpaste ruin my marriage. So he has his own tube and I have my own tube. Now, when we go on vacation, we share a tube, but then we just compromise. You can tell who used it last because it's either rolled or squeezed. But actually, if you take the squeezers and you roll the squeezers, you still get it out. But yeah, like, no, I mean, there's little things. And he even said to me, he goes, I don't like when you do this, but I've never said anything. And he's like, because you never say anything, and I know that there's stuff that I do that I don't like. And I said, why? Like, is it physically or emotionally hurting us? And the answer is no. So I said I was going to love you no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yep, precisely. And I can't count the times where mine made decisions that I wish he didn't do. And he even said, you're not mad at me? No. I'm glad you did exactly what I told you to do. You make a whoopsie or something's about to hit the fan, you get a hold of me that I can come and fix it. Which he did. And that's where I left it at. But other things, like something as simple as like, okay, let's see here. Alrighty, Okay, let's see. Okay, babe, I'll call like whatever time. Okay. That time rolls around. No call, no text. An hour later. Another hour later. Next morning, he texts me saying, "Hey, babe, good morning. Hope you're okay." And I just respond back with like, "Can you please follow through with what you say? Because if you don't, I cannot believe you. Please follow your word." And that irritates me. And even if it's just a simple communication of like, well, I said I was going to call, but I'm not able to. Okay, no problem. Things happen. But no, at all. Whoops.
It's just all learning.
Yep, all learning, nodding our head and rolling with it and just saying,
It's learning to
again.
honor better. And it's where everybody's in different spaces when it comes to that, you know.
Yep.
Some stuff I'm better at than others, and some stuff people are better at than I am.
Yep.
So so she ends this chapter with that beautiful story about David. And so I think that's like really impactful. And so those that just joined, because I saw a few people just joined, I will have the replay on my Patreon and on my YouTube. And Bren, you'll get actually a copy of it if you're one of my moderators. So if you want it.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up tonight. I know we didn't have like a huge discussion, but I think also part of that is because it is Easter. And I know a lot of people are actually working through their second chakra right now, celebrating with their families. But
Yep.
the questions that she has, and these are really for self-examination, they're not for us to answer, are question 1, how do you define creativity? Do you consider yourself a creative person? Do you follow through on your creative ideas? 2, how often do you direct your creative energies into negative paths of expression? Do you exaggerate or embellish facts to support your point of view? 3, are you comfortable with your sensuality? If not, are you able to work toward healing your sensual imbalances? Do you use people for sensual pleasure, or have you felt used? Are you strong enough to honor your sensual boundaries? 4, do you keep your word? What is your personal code of honor? What is your personal code of ethics? Do you negotiate your ethics depending upon your circumstances? 5, do you have an impression of God as a force that exerts justice in your life? So keep in mind, again, Carolyn Miss is Christian. So if you are any other religion instead of God, you can insert deity, or even if you don't believe in a deity, you can just, do you have an impression of a higher power as a force that exerts justice in your life? There we go. 6, are you a controlling person? Do you engage in power plays in your relationships? Are you able to see yourself clearly in circumstances related to power and money? 7, does money have authority over you? Do you make compromises that violate your inner self for the sake of financial security? 8, how often do survival fears dictate your choices? 9, are you strong enough to master your fears concerning finances and physical survival, or do they control you and your attitudes? 10, what goals do you have for yourself that you have yet to pursue? What stands in the way of your acting upon those goals? So I know those are like, they are very personal, so I don't expect anybody to like want to have to share any of those, because they are very personal.
But I will say this though. That one question that's like, do you honor your word? Do you keep your word? Here's a big, how do I put this? A big megaphone going off going, if you give your word, be very aware Because once you give it, indirectly, existence hears it. And as much as you don't want to maybe honor it or you regret doing it, you either try your best to fulfill it or you may be put in a position where you'll be forced to honor it. And if not this life, probably the next one. So best to try to just honor your word and be aware of what you're giving that word and commitment to.
All right. So the first chakra in Carolyn Miss's power and healing is all is one. The second is honor one another. And next time, I thought it was right here. It is. Oh, I guess it will be hidden in the chapter. So, but we'll have the third one next week. So we will be on part 2, chapter 3, or it is chapter 5 if you have the first edition. And it's the third chakra, personal power. So this is the chapter we'll be discussing next Sunday. So we're moving on up. Moving up our chakras. Again, the book is The Anatomy of the Spirit, The 7 Stages of Power and Healing by Carolyn Miss. All right, Brent, anything you want to add? And then go ahead and let everybody know when you go live.
Well, other than what I just said about like honoring your word, and also another thing to keep in mind when it comes to your power, your ethics, and your say, remember, it's your say. Don't let nobody think that they can just waltz in and say, well, you can't have your opinion. Yeah, right. No, don't let people think they have that right to take away your voice, ever. Yes. And if somebody keeps pushing that, just remind them that, hey, I get it. I understand that you want to be heard, but I need to be heard too. Because you're just as important as me. So I'm going to say my voice, and you can take it and deal with it, or just take it and deal with it. Because I'm allowing you to give it. Don't be afraid to get feisty, because when you crumble, that also impacts you, and you start to get flooded with those thoughts of saying, well, maybe I'm not worthy enough to speak, or maybe I'm not supposed to speak. No. Don't let that ever win.
Yes. No, I 100% agree. And we do see this a lot in our everyday lives. We see it in our mundane and our spiritual lives. If you see somebody doing this in the spiritual community, just know, obviously, there's somebody that you're not going to want to listen to, right? Because they're not honoring other people and they're being judgmental. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful point, Bren.
And in terms of, say, well, let's see here. What the heck do I do? Well, if you really like to know a lot of things, of course, the astrology stuff, and my link is in bio. If you ever want a reading, you just fill out the intake form, or you can just go on the Just Ask Me link. In terms of live, I'm actually really tempted to do a live tonight and mess around with GhostTube just to see what goes around and maybe do some readings and just have a fiasco of fun or whatever the heck they call it nowadays and go from there. But yeah.
Yeah. So, and Bren usually joins me on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Sundays. So Tuesday is Tuesday Tarot. So we'll do tarot and oracle card readings, 1-card readings. Thursday is spiritual panel, and we are talking about Jupiter this week. Next week,
we'll just like how it just weaves together so beautifully. We're talking about the sacral. Here's Jupiter, and then here comes on Thursday Jupiter again on his day, all planned.
It's like the universe sets out a pattern. Like we sit here and we think this is the pattern, but it's the universe setting it for us. And we do have a thank you, and you're welcome. Yes, join us next week as we go through the next chapter. Like, this is a pretty in-depth book, so we are really enjoying doing this book. So it is a chapter a week. So, all right. Well, everybody, it is time to say goodbye. Mary,
alone, farewell. I don't know the rest of that song, Mary.
I don't even. I should know it. I should know it. I'll like Maybe we'll figure it out. But as always, merry meet, merry part, bright blessings, and namaste.